is Outsider2522 and welcome to another Idleon video. So today we're going to be looking at what makes a good active class, which classes you should be using, and why. Well, let's talk about it. Now before I say too much, remember to like, share and subscribe. We want to make this channel grow into the biggest community on YouTube. Alright, also I'm going to start pushing my Discord again, so there's a link to my Discord below. If you've got any questions, because I see a lot of comments asking questions and stuff, and you don't want to leave it in YouTube, perhaps join the Discord and let's connect. Okay, so I'm going to start this off as if you were brand new to Idleon and know nothing. First, I'm going to describe what active play is. So, active play is a bit deceptive, because you're not really active. You're not pressing buttons and interacting with things, but what you are doing is you're online, in essence. So with Idleon, it's an AFK game. Apparently, it's not very much when you get into the end game, but we'll say it's an AFK game. And what that means is 9 of your characters will be left working in the background doing AFK stuff, while one of them you can be active on. And what that means is that you're actively watching that toon do whatever it's doing. Now there are benefits to this, such as when you're fighting, you will be able to spawn in crystal mobs which have bonus XP, extra drop tables, things like that. So, you know, active is an important part of the game, and especially when you start pushing up towards the high end. Now I'm going to focus on elite skills, so things that you unlock from World 4 onwards. And there are really 3 standalone classes that kind of stand out when it comes to active play. And this isn't to say you can't use the others, but they don't really have a niche, and they work just as well AFK as they do active. This is due to certain skills that these classes have that make them very, very good. You may have heard it about in a previous video, but when I was talking about the Blood Berserker and why it wasn't a very good class, one of the main ones is that they can respawn enemies. What this is going to do is it's going to increase your kills per hour, and it's going to increase your XP, which is a huge thing later on. The first class we're going to talk about is the Bubonic Conjuror. Now, I've done a whole video about how to increase cranium cooking, so if you're not sure how to make this, how to optimize this class and get the most from it, go and watch that. But I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how this works. So, in essence, the main thing the Bubonic Conjuror does is it spreads damage all across the map. Alright, you can have clouds everywhere, you can have aura zones later on, it just is massive AoE. It will also raise the dead, which means that it respawns everything within a certain radius of you. Now, if you have enough clouds and auras, as soon as they respawn, the enemies will be killed, which means that you can get fantastic kill rates on it. Now, the main benefit of the Bubonic Conjuror is that it generates liquid for alchemy. Alchemy is a very, very important skill, and it is what will keep pushing your stats forward, even into the late game. Now, the thing with alchemy is you will reach a point where you cannot get enough mats to increase your alchemy bubbles, but you'll have atoms. Now, atoms you'll be able to do 50 per day at max, which when you rank up your levels, you might be able to get a maximum of 100 levels in any bubbles per day through just using atoms. Also, people tend to sample the lower bubbles and run them hourly. That's for the real high-end stuff. Don't worry about that if you're new to the game, but as you get later in the game, it might be something you want to focus on. So I've started doing it. I'm not massively into it. I do it when I remember it. The one thing that the Bubonic Conjuror does really, really well, though, is there's a bubble called grind time. And what this does is it increases your XP rate for every single character. This scales infinitely. Alright, and the only thing holding you back is the amount of liquid you generate. There are no materials used other than liquid. So, if you can active with your Bubonic Conjuror, you're going to get lots of liquid. With the liquid, you can increase grind time, which means you can level up every other character much quicker. With the Equinox bonus that we just got, it will also, at max rank, pass 99% of unspent liquid into upgrading your cauldrons. Which means that you basically have no reason not to leave your Bubonic Conjuror running overnight, because it doesn't even matter if you're there, your cauldron's going to level up, which means your liquid generation's quicker, which means when you active on your Bubo during the day, you're going to get bigger gains. It's a fantastic class to use actively. Alright, The next class to probably look at is the other side of the mage, which is the Elemental Sorcerer. Why is this class so good? This class is fantastic at getting the very first mob drop in any drop table. Okay? These drops are affected by things like multi-kill and stuff like that, so you can get extreme numbers of them. Alright, your drop rate will also increase the amount of these you get. So, the reason that Elemental Sorcerer works so well when you're getting mats is that it can create a wormhole. And the wormhole will spawn enemies. Okay? Every set of enemies that you kill will refresh the enemies on the map, which means you can get more kills again. Now, the one caveat to the Elemental Sorceress is you need very high damage because the health of the enemy scales every single time that a new set spawns out of the wormhole. If, however, you can get to high levels on the wormhole, you will see that it increases XP per enemy killed from the wormhole and drop rate of enemy killed from the wormhole. So it doesn't affect all enemies on the map, but it does affect anything that spawns from the wormhole. This can increase your drop rate massively. Alright, and because the way the Elemental Sorcerer is made up, it has huge AoE potential. The meteors will reach different levels, so you won't even need to go between levels. The whirlwinds will decimate everything on your level. You've got eruptions going off. It's a monster when it comes to damage. It also doesn't care about the map. Now, that may seem strange, but we'll come into that in a minute. So, with this being said, it also works really, really well with world free mobs. The reason is, when you're statue farming, the world free mobs tend to have statues on an individual mob rather than on the crystal creature. Because they're on an individual mob and the maps are set out in a specific way, the Elemental Sorcerer is fantastic at farming these things. So, when later on you're going to probably need a lot of hampters. Alright, they drop from, is it steel moles? I think they're called steel moles. The map has many, many different levels on it, which means that the enemies spawn all over the place. The Elemental Sorcerer is probably going to be your best friend for that level. Alright, mainly because the map is all over the place, and every single time you spawn something out of the wormhole, you have a chance to get more drops from it. Fantastic class to active. However, you're probably not as likely to leave this running overnight unless you filtered the basic mob mat out. Alright, what do I mean by basic mob mat? The first mat that appears when you click on the card in the top left-hand corner, because that will probably fill up your inventory very quick, and if it fills up your inventory, you're going to get a desync, and you're probably going to disconnect after a certain amount of time. The third class that is good to active is a bit more situational. So the third one would be the Divine Knight, going down the Barbarian side. Okay, so we've come away from the mages, who are great at AoE, and we're now on the barb side. Not on the barb side, on the squire side. Now, with the Divine Knight, it has the orb. Okay, now the orb is fantastic because every single enemy on the map has increased drop rate for every number above the orb. Now, I have been told this is multiplicative. I've never tested it, so I'm just taking that as gospel truth. And given the amount of drops you'll get using this class, it probably is, because this class is phenomenal at what it does. Now, when we say the orb, that's fine. Alright, it also has a respawn mechanic that lasts over a certain amount of time. So every time you clear the map of all mobs, the mobs will respawn. There is a bit of a delay on it, but still, you can end up killing a lot of mobs in a very short amount of time. So it hits the two things that we're looking for: increased drop rate and respawn mechanics. Now, why is this class so situational? The reason is that this class only works on maps that have a few levels on it. Okay, what do I mean by levels? You know, every single level is a platform, basically. If it has one or two platforms, this class will be fantastic at doing it. If it has more than that, this class will suffer. The reason is that most of its damage is going to come from the Knight and Shockwaves. Alright, now the Knight will clear one whole level for you, which means that you can kind of camp on the other level and deal with everything up there. Okay, but once you get more than that, its AoE isn't very good at dealing with it. Alright, it does have a boomerang, but it's a bit touchy to use, and it kind of goes in a trajectory, so if the layers work for you, it works. However, not really. Now, the main benefit of this, which is slightly different from the Elemental Sorcerer, is because it increases drops of everything on the map and not just enemies that have come out of a wormhole, crystal creatures are affected by the increased drop rate. Now, crystal creatures are going to be where you're going to be farming a lot of your statues. You need these to make onyx. I spoke about it in another video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. All right. Now, the crystal creatures will spawn all over the place because you're going to be clearing. But again, Divine Knight only works on a very few maps. So really, you're looking at in World 1, you might use it on Board Beans. In World 2, you might use it on Tysons. In World 3, you're going to use it on Dedicated Rams. In World 4, you're going to use it on Flombage or Clammies. And in World 5, you're going to use it on Citringes or Worms. Alright? That's kind of your limits for this class. And this is why this class is fantastic, but maybe not as versatile as the other two, because the other two will work on every single map. Okay, so what's the take home? Because I always get asked, which class should I be using? What should I evolve next? The answer is whatever fits the part you're missing. If you're wanting to level up quicker and you're wanting to increase your alchemy bubbles, then go and use your Bubo active. All right, Bubonic Conjuror is your best friend. If you're needing more mats for things like vials, and it's not on one of the maps I mentioned for Divine Knight, then use your Elemental Sorcerer. If you're looking to statue farm and you're happy to do it on the maps I've said, then go and use your Divine Knight. All right, they cover 3 different aspects of the game. What I tend to think happens is the Elemental Sorcerer is really, really good. Once you've finished farming your mats, it becomes less useful. All right, so it might be something you want to push early, finish off your grind with it, and then move on. The Divine Knight and the Bubonic Conjurer will always be useful, because statues you will always want to level because they just increase every part of the game. And grind time will be your best friend, because at some point the amount of XP you're going to need to level up will be exponentially large, and the only way you're going to overcome that is with grind time or white pearls. White pearls are limited, you can only get a few a week, so grind time is going to be your best friend. If you found this video useful in any way, shape or form, please feel free to like, share or subscribe. Until next time, you've been amazing. Take care.